so sorry. I didn't know. That side is okay. Okay, this side's okay. So this is, okay. This is what we'll do. Five people, okay, so, if they want to I'm not the cop. So if only 4 people come and get a scroll, I'm not going to say, scroll. But if someone qualifies and want a scroll, they can get one. I'll read something. I wasn't really planning on Welcome. We can still say Shana Tova. It's a week into a new year. We add Gemar Chatima Tova. May you be inscribed for life at this time of reflection. A reminder to put your phones away, to turn them to silent, unless you feel suddenly compelled to write a family friend or relative and say you're sorry for the year. And I'm only half kidding. So you get a pass on your phone if you are saying, dear uncle whoever, it's Yom Kippur and I'm sorry. And they'll say, what are you doing talking on the phone on Yom Kippur? And you'll say, Rabbi said I could do it to say I'm sorry. There are limits. You can't start, I'm sorry for Dak Prescott, I'm sorry for TCU, I'm sorry. Unless they're a part of your family, all right? We turn to page 6. What an extraordinary gift it is. What a blessing, what a miracle to have been raised by imperfect parents who did their best. To share our life with a partner no more flawed than we are. To count as a friend one who understands and accepts us most of the time. How brave, how hard it is to be good enough in our ties to one another. To give even when we're exhausted, to love faithfully, to receive with grace the love imperfectly offered to us. Can this night set us free from the tyranny of expectations? Can this night release us from fantasies impossible to fulfill? We resolve this night to embrace the practice of forgiveness, to forgive others who fail to be all we hoped they would be, to forgive ourselves when we fall short of what others hoped we would be, to declare this night that we will cherish goodness wherever it is found and open ourselves to the gifts that are before us. Page 9, the lighting of candles on this Yom Kippur.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Yom HaKippurim.
Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, teaching us holiness through sacred obligations, giving us the mitzvah of bringing light on Yom Kippur.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik
We turn to page 14. We face the Ark, Kol Nidre, an ancient legal vow, language of earlier contracts used now to free us from obligations we cannot make or meet, even as we aspire to try harder in the coming year. And yet Kol Nidre is there to cleanse us for our vows before God. For vows between one human being and another, still the day asks work of us. That is why the day is 24 hours. That is why there are so many services, because the gates are open, the opportunities are available. Not to turn to God, we do that in the first 5 minutes. To turn to one another, to do the hard work of cracking open the gates of forgiveness, the gates of judgment, a little more open to each other. And so we stand before the open ark, and a reminder that if you're physically unable, you should please feel free to sit whenever you deem it necessary. Page 14, with the Torah scrolls as our witnesses, we rise and face the ark as we prepare for Kol Nidre. Responsively, Yom Kippur, the Jewish people's festival of the soul, Kol Nidre, its sacred portal, a night of deep emotions, a night, as the psalmist wrote, to rejoice with trembling.
We rejoice at the sound of Kol Nidre, rhythmic words of release from vows, oaths, and promises to God we fail to keep.
We tremble at the melody, music of spiritual amazement. It fills us with awe as we stand before God. We rejoice that we stand together, strengthened by community in this hour of shared weakness. We tremble, for tonight we confess our flaws, admit our imperfection, and acknowledge a power far beyond our understanding.
We rejoice that we commit ourselves to great endeavors because we feel so deeply and think so nobly.
We tremble, for we find that our ideals are far greater than our ability. Our promises surpass our might.
We rejoice in the freedom that is Kol Nidre's true gift, the freedom to begin a new year without fear of failure, to aspire to be God's image in the world.
We tremble because we are mortal. We rejoice in our gratitude for life.
We rejoice with trembling and enter Kol Nidre to face our humanity.
V'shiva shel mala, v'shiva shel mata, al data makom, v'al data kahal, anu matirin l'hitpalel im ha'avyarnim. With one voice, assembled sages, past and present, declare, all may pray as one on this night of repentance. Let none be excluded from our community of prayer. With one voice, God and congregation proclaim, all may pray as one on this day of return. Let all find a place in this sacred assembly. 19, we read together in the middle in English. Give us the strength to keep our promises, the sacred vows of partners in marriage, the promises of love and care between parents and children, the promises of duty between citizens and country, the oaths of doctors, the sacred trust of teachers. Give us the strength to keep our promises to our friends and colleagues, to those who live with us and depend on us, to those who work for us and for those for whom we work, to those who pray with us and those for whom we pray, to those we love and those we serve. Give us the courage to keep our promises to ourselves, to one another, and to future generations. Please remain standing as the Torah scrolls are returned to the ark. Page 20. V'nislach l'chol adat b'nei Yisrael v'lager hager b'tocham ki l'chol ha'am bishkaga, all shall be forgiven, the entire community of Israel, the stranger who lives in their midst, for all have gone astray in error. Slach na la'avon ha'am hazeh. Moses prayed to God, as you have been faithful to this people ever since Egypt, please forgive their failings now, in keeping with your boundless love. And God responded, I forgive as you have asked. Page 22, we remain in front of the open ark, standing for the Baruch Hu. Page 28, together. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam
be seated as we continue together on page 30, these words of the V'ahavta in English, and then 30 and 32. You shall love Adonai your God with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Set these words which I command you this day upon your heart. Teach them faithfully to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be a symbol for your house. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Be mindful of all my mitzvot and do them. Thus you will become holy to your God. I, Adonai, am your God, who brought you out of Egypt to be your God. I, Adonai, your God. Adonai Elohechem emet. Adonai, your God, is true. Page 40, we sing as Moses and Miriam sang at the shore of Freedom Sea.
Baruch atah Adonai. Baruch Shalom. Geal Israel. Amen.
Page 43. Together at the top of the page. When fears multiply and danger threatens, when sickness comes, when death confronts us, it is God's blessing of shalom that sustains us and upholds us, lightening our burden, dispelling our worry, restoring our strength, renewing our hope, reviving us.
Bye. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu V'Avotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagdol, Hagibor V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomeh Chasadim Tovim, V'Gomeh Hakol, V'Zocher Chasei Avot V'Imahot, U'Me'iludot Livnei V'Nehem, Le'man Shemo
Page 50. We read in English, Your life-giving power is forever, Adonai. With us in life and in death, you liberate and save, cause dew to descend, and with mercy abundant, lovingly nurture all life. From life to death, you are the force that flows without end. You support the falling, heal the sick, free the imprisoned and confined. You are faithful even to those who rest in the dust. Power beyond power, from whom salvation springs. Sovereign over life and death, who is like you? Merciful God, who compares with you? With tender compassion, you remember all creatures for life. Faithful and true, worthy of our trust, you sustain our immortal yearnings. For in you we place our undying hope. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol, wellspring of blessing, power eternal. You are the one who gives and renews all life. Page 58.
Kadosh atah, Benora Shemecha, Ve'en Elohai, Baladecha, Kadosh atah, Benora Shemecha, Ve'en Elohai, Baladecha. Kakatu, Adonai, Bamishat, Kakatu, Adonai, Sebaot, Bamishat. Amen.
many classic prayers, liturgy passed down through the centuries, our new prayer book adds modern voices, and the result is a wonderful prayer book that would take far more than a day to get through. And so at any time during the service, you are invited to wander, to read the explanations, to look to poetry, to get lost off the page, to find your place on your journey. However, if you're the kind of person who's got to be right where we are, take some time now to flip through some of these pages over the next 10 or 15 pages as we pause for silent prayer. As we turn to page 82, the Vidui, you'll notice, as we discussed at Rosh Hashanah, so many of the prayers that are only present at Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur that speak of grand moments, standing before the throne of God, capturing our attention. We'll look at a couple more of those parts of the service tomorrow, perhaps. But I need to point out the vidui, which occurs multiple times in our next day, beginning with the Hashamnu and Va'al Kulam, ending with Avinu Malkeinu, these prayers that call us to attention. Throughout the world, there are quiet moments when we are called to attention. And if we've gotten to this point of the year, I guess we need something louder. So in this created space, we stand before one another and before the Torah scrolls. The prayers are more formal, the language grander, but at its heart is a very simple call. Maybe you heard the call when you were a child. Maybe you heard the call from a parent or spouse. The call goes something like this. Is there something you'd like to say? And it usually means they know something you don't think they know. And it's usually going pretty well until that moment. There are a series of moments in the service, and they will come again and again and again, when the service will call to you and say, is there something you want to say to someone? Because during this 24-hour period, they just might be waiting to hear it. We rise at the top of page 82. If it is your custom, you will notice that some choose to touch the side over their heart as we hear these litany of sins, these missing the marks. Eloheinu v'Eloi avotenu v'imotenu tavo lefanecha tefilatenu v'al tit ala michinatenu anachnu azei panim ukshei oref lomar lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Eloi avotenu v'imotenu tzadikim anachnu v'lo chatanu aval anachnu chatanu. Our God and God of our ages, may our prayers reach your presence, and when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin, but in truth we know we have stumbled, we have strayed, we have done wrong.
Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 Ashamnu, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Bagadnu, Gazarnu, Gazarnu, Dibarnu dofi, Dibarnu dofi, ay, 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 Evinu, Evinu, Virshanu, Virshanu, Zadnu, Zadnu, Hamasnu, Hamasnu, Tafanu Shecher, Tafanu Sheker, ay, 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 Yatnura, Yatnura, Kizavnu, Kizavnu, La
Please be seated. Page 86. Al chet shachatanu lefanecha. We read together in English. The ways we have wronged you deliberately and by mistake, and harm we have caused in your world through the words of our mouths. The ways we have wronged you by hardening our hearts, harm we have caused in your world through careless speech. The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and harm we have caused in your world through gossip and rumor. The ways we have wronged you by judging others unfairly, harm we have caused in your world through disrespect to parents and teachers. The ways we have wronged you through insincere apologies, harm we have caused in your world by mistreating a friend or neighbor. The ways we have wronged you through violence and abuse, harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty in business. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. Page 88 and page 90. Al chet shachatanu lefanecha, together. The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and harm we have caused in your world by losing self-control. The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink. The ways we have wronged you by giving in to our hostile impulses. Harm we have caused in your world through greed and exploitation. The ways we have wronged you through cynicism and scorn. Harm we have caused in your world through arrogant behavior. The ways we have wronged you by hating without cause, and harm we have caused in your world through offensive speech. The ways we have wronged you with a slanderous tongue, and harm we have caused in your world through a selfish or petty spirit. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atone. Turn to page 100. Among this litany of sins and words of prayer, El Rachum, we are reminded that God is compassionate, even as we face the work yet that we need to do. This number 3 occurs in our service over and over. The rabbis saw 3 as an important number. When a Jew converts, they come before 3, a rabbinical court. When we make a vow or need to break a vow, it is done before a court, the court of at least 3 Torah scrolls. And when we turn to God and say, please remember that we are human and give us another chance to make our lives better, again that number 3. And so in a moment, we will listen to those words the first 2 times seated, and then the 3rd time before the open ark before God. We will offer those words that God offered to Moses. When Moses said, I'm sorry for what I've done, I broke the commandments. Can you find a way to forgive me, to forgive your people? And God said, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun. We read responsively at the top of page 100. God of forgiveness, we come before you in need of compassion.
At Sinai you spoke words that guide our lives to this day, but our ancestors lost faith in you, lost hope in their Redeemer.
With one voice they had promised, we will do and obey, and yet stiff-necked they broke their word, adoring an idol of gold.
How wondrous your compassion in the face of their rebellion, your forgiveness in that moment of human weakness.
We too have broken promises to you. We too worship the work of our own hands. We too make a gold god, and we too forsake your word.
At Sinai you revealed 13 attributes of mercy. These aspects of your nature, your very essence,
we now recall.
Adonai,
Page 105. In all your ways be aware of God, for there is no sovereign without a people. Ein melech below am. Together we are the chariot on which God's glory rides, for there is no sovereign without a people. Let the love of God be spread through our deeds, for there is no sovereign without a people.
You are my servant Israel. I will be glorified through you, for there is no sovereign without a people.
Where is God? Anywhere we let God in, for there is no sovereign without a people. Ein melech below am. Eternal God,
you revealed to Moses your 13 attributes of mercy.
They exist in the world through our awareness. They transform the world through our actions. We speak them now as prayer and aspiration. Turn to page 107. We are insolent, but you are compassionate and gracious.
We are stubborn and stiff-necked, but you are slow to anger.
We persist in doing wrong, but you are the essence of mercy.
Our days are a shadow passing by, but you are existence itself. Your years never end.
We rise as we stand before the open ark for this last recitation. Together in English, Adonai, Adonai, God, compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving and true, showing mercy to the thousandth generation, forgiving evil, defiance, and wrongdoing, granting pardon. We remain standing, page 113. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice. Some of us have cancer. Some have lost strength of body. Some have lost memory and speech. Some of us are in pain. Some of us can't find work. Some of us bear the marks of human cruelty inside, where the scars don't show. Some live with depression. Some battle addiction. Many feel alone. Some have known shattered marriages, trust betrayed, hopes destroyed. Some of us have lost the ones we love far too soon, and some have lost a child. All of us have seen suffering in our midst. All of us know the ravages of war, for which there are no words. Together, Avinu Malkeinu, why? Avinu Malkeinu, are you there?
Do you care?
Avinu Malkeinu, hear our pain. Avinu, our grief. Avinu Malkeinu, here is our prayer. Give us the strength to go on. Give us reasons to get up each day. Give us purpose and persistence. Help us to fend off fear and to hold on to hope. Help us to be kind. Don't make us bow or grovel for your favor. Give us dignity and give us courage. Show us the way to a year of goodness. Renew our belief the world can be better. Renew our faith in life. Restore our faith. 114.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Kamo Aleinu. Ve'ot Aleinu, V'tapeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Ka'lekerev, Ve'kerev Ra'ah, Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Ka'letozar, U'masim, Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chotveinu, Besefer Chaim Toim. Avinu Malkeinu, Kodesh Aleinu, Kodesh Aleinu, Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu, Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu, Shema Koleinu, Shema Koleinu.
Together, Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us, on our families. Avinu Malkeinu, hold beyond sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption. Avinu Malkeinu, we pray, do not turn us away from you with nothing. Avinu Malkeinu, welcome our prayer with love, accept and embrace it. Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake, if not for ours. Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are our sovereign. Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice, treat us with tender compassion. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Vadneinu, Vadneinu, Kiven Banu Masi, Asei Manu,
Page 117, we continue before the open ark with Elena.
Aleinu leshabeach, le'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר מראשית, שהוא רוצה שמיים ויוסר
I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, staying at my grandparents' house in Toronto, the warmest, most welcoming place in the world. Rabbi Zimmerman's house always had the smell of food warming in the oven, On Saturday afternoon following services, the three of us, my booby, my Zadie, and I, would sit in the kitchen instead of the larger dining room where Shabbat dinner was served to many. That smaller kitchen was always overwhelmed by the multitudes of plates and glasses and food crowding all available space. Sounds of my grandfather singing out loud and inviting me to join in were only interrupted by his banging on the table when I ate too quickly. Nothing I did in life ever upset him except eating too quickly on Shabbat. He would tolerate anything else. But at the table, wolfing down egg rolls and gefilte fish, meatballs and coleslaw and chicken, my boobie's regular Shabbat meal staples, and yes, all that food in one Shabbat meal every week. My Zadie would slam his hand down and say, "Slow down, where are you going? Don't eat so quickly." And when all was said and done, retreating to the den to watch Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner cartoons. He liked my company, but it didn't really matter if I stayed with him or if there was company visiting that afternoon. For him, Shabbat was first the shul where he chanted from the Torah every week, schnapps in the back of the sanctuary with his friends, followed by lunch, songs, and then that sacred late afternoon time sitting in the dark by the TV, full of Shabbat songs, study, food, and a bit of schnapps, watching Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner. Their home was the happiest place, bursting with memories that hid behind every corner, under every book, and in every cooked dish. The best memories. When I was only 5 or 6 years old, I remember it clearly as if it was yesterday. My Zadie came down the stairs from a phone call. My mom and dad were standing nearby at the doorway of the house. My Zadie looked down from the stairs to my parents, and he made a symbol. My grandmother started to cry. My parents put me in a car and asked my uncle to drive me to the 2 hours to Buffalo to be with my other grandparents for the next few days. And that was my memory of the time my great-grandmother passed away. Consider that I have 18 years of memories in that home, well over 50 or 60 visits with joyful moments, but that is still, all these years later, among my strongest memories. The silent hand movements, the tears, the unspoken words, the funeral that I never saw, an overactive imagination, and the silence that comes with loss. That's a pretty mild story. I'm sure that many of you have your own moments of first loss that are much more powerful, acute, even distressing. Judaism offers us an interesting tension when it comes to the process of grieving. On the one hand, our mourning laws are all designed to bring our grieving, our remembering, our storytelling out into the open. We tell stories of the departed at funerals. The emphasis is always on how that person lived. We name our children after loved ones now gone. We wear a torn ribbon at the funeral that tells the world we are a mourner, that our hearts are torn. We invite people to join us after a funeral, to come to our home to hear stories, to offer hugs, and to embrace the still living memories of the person we have lost. We are commanded to say the Kaddish in a minyan, a public prayer quorum of 10 other people. Grieving, which feels private and personal, is forced to become an inherently public process. We are invited, commanded, to share our memories with the living, and our beloved lives on in the telling. But there is a tension and another side to those liminal moments of loss. a side that goes back centuries, a side steeped in fearful superstitions that says, don't talk about it. You'll make it real. The evil eye will get you. Growing up in the Reform movement of the 70s, I was taught to rise for the mourner's Kaddish. I was told that it would support those who were mourning. I was taught to say it for the nameless victims of the Holocaust, who perished with no one left to remember them. I still remember in the summer between 7th and 8th grade sleeping over at my friend Paul's house, a camp friend who grew up in a conservative synagogue. We both went to a conservative movement Jewish day camp that summer, and we were taught to say prayers every night before bed. Paul said, hey, let's just flip open the book and find one prayer, and then we'll be done. I opened the prayer book, I turned to the Kaddish, and I started reading. Paul grabbed the prayer book and slammed it closed. Don't say that prayer, you'll kill your parents. Some of you grew up with those customs, those superstitions as well. Don't say the Kaddish. Don't attend the Temple Yizkor service. You'll kill your parents. Don't name your child after someone still alive if you come from Ashkenazic descendants. You'll bring the evil eye upon the one you meant to honor and the child. There are many powerful rituals that surround death. Some bring comfort and a sense of healing calm. Other customs are fearful of boundaries and curses, the existential terror of the mystery of death. Family member returning from a funeral washes hands outside the house before entering the mourner's home, a sign of returning to life, but also a sign of boundaries being crossed. It is fearful to bring death back into the house. Of course, there are many non-Jewish superstitions that we might follow. Canards we carry with us from childhood. Don't walk under a ladder. Avoid crossing in front of a black cat. In Jewish circles, we're told to whisper the name of a specific disease under our breath, lest we give ourselves bad luck and somehow catch the disease. But I think with this loss, the biggest loss, there's something more. Discussing death puts us face to face with our own greatest fear, the fear of our own mortality. We spend our days trying to shield our children and ourselves from that reality. My parents actually spent many of my childhood years speaking candidly to me about death, their own fears, and answering my own questions about where they thought people might go after they die. As a rabbi's kid, on more than one occasion, my dad pulled up at the cemetery on a Sunday for an unveiling and told my mom, I'll be back in a few minutes. As we waited in the parking lot, I would look out the window at the stones, the people dressed in black coming and going and crying. So it was mostly an honest environment that encouraged questions and doubts, but there was that moment when I was whisked away to another home to imagine far worse things than whatever really happened. Intellectually, I understand this reaction, this fear, on any number of levels. First, any discussion about death will lead to the question, what happens after we die? And let me clarify, Judaism is very, very, very clear on this matter. We don't know. Our bodies return to the earth to become part of the energy of the planet, but beyond that, it's pretty open to interpretation. Some Jews believe our souls, our essence, returns to God. Other Jews, beginning about 2,000 years ago, began to consider the already popular idea of resurrection of the dead, a messianic era in which we would be returned to our bodies, somehow once more intact. Still others imagine a heaven-like place where we are reunited with dead loved ones. Some believe there is nothing in life, afterlife, but believe we live on in the good deeds that we have done. Nothing we create that is positive is lost in the singular God-like energy of the universe. The Torah is vague and says little, very little. But thousands of years have allowed us to assimilate ideas about the afterlife from lots of different cultures, religions, and lands that we have experienced and lived in. And of late, a lot of pop culture ideas, from angels and bells and wings to reincarnation, have entered our American Jewish consciousness. So many options to choose from, and then some, can be liberating. Until a 6-year-old says, "Mom, where do we go when we die?" We try to avoid answers to scary questions that include the answer, "I don't know." And most importantly, we work so very, very hard to protect our children. If anything, these last few years of new technology have given us the opportunity to turn protecting our children into an art form or an act of hysteria, depending on your point of view, but that's a sermon for another day. We can track our kids' every activity by their phones. If they drive a car, we have the ability to know exactly where they are at any given moment. We can follow their posts, their emails, and if we choose, we can remove any semblance of their privacy in the name of safety. So the idea that we can't protect our children from becoming aware of their own mortality and ours, that is scary. Yes, indeed. I understand the urge to protect. Every parent does. But our children are surrounded by the fear of death. Scary movies, violent video games, comic books, real violence in their schools. And they grow up and spend their lives surrounded by terrifying possibilities. And so understandably, we try to protect them from the possibility of any danger, no matter how unlikely that danger may be. So the idea that we cannot protect them from the hard reality of something as real, well, that fear of loss can be debilitating. Ironically, Yom Kippur demands that we come face to face with our own mortality. We are told to refrain from eating, from wearing certain shoes, from engaging in intimate acts with our partners. Some pray in white robes, a kittel that is used for burial. And then on Yom Kippur Day, we recall all we have ever known and loved and lost. These acts of confronting our own fragile mortality are central to the day and its observances. On the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, many Jews go to the cemetery to reflect on the loss of loved ones. Standing by their graves, remembering their lives, we hope will inspire us to live as our best selves in the coming years. This past weekend, standing at Hebrew Rest Cemetery, the oldest Jewish place of burial in Fort Worth, dating back 150 years, with just a few of our members, we considered how each year the number that show up to that historic place gets smaller and older. Who will tell their stories? Who will come to remember? Knowing that some of our anxiety or reluctance to speak about this topic might come from a feeling of inadequacy, to address our children's fears, I thought there must be better ways this is done. I went online to look at some of the answers that other faiths offer to parents to share with their children. On many a Christian website, parents are told to affirm certain scary but reassuring truths. Death is a part of life. Death comes to all because of the original sin of Adam in the Garden of Eden. Death is not the way the world was supposed to work, but since original sin brought death, it means one day we'll be reunited with God, and one day even death will die. Well, I'm not interested in discussing the merits of other belief systems of other faiths that bring great comfort to them and it works for them. The problem for me is I don't believe any of those things. I don't believe I'll die because Adam ate a piece of fruit. I don't believe death will one day be defeated, although I like the idea and want to believe it's true. And I don't believe I'll die because I was a sinner. What I do know for sure, what I do believe, I know that there is so much we do not know about what happens next. I know that Judaism gives us permission to guess, to let our mind wander and dream, but to put our energies into the now, not the potential maybe later. And whatever may or may not happen, we know this troubling, hard reality. The day we have children, we buy them a ticket for a ride. The most wonderful ride. Every one of us gets a chance. And we pray that for all the war and poverty and injustice we see around us, they will somehow be safe. That our children's ride will be one filled with dreams and laughter and as little pain as possible. But we know deep down, even if we are afraid to acknowledge it, that they will have to say goodbye to people they love. And we know that if their life works out the way we pray, they'll have to say goodbye to us. And that wonderful ride we gave them with their birth comes with a painful price. And we don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. But Yom Kippur reminds us that once in a while, we have to face the truth of our own existence. Not every day, but some days. If we are preparing our children for every possible contingency in life, except the one thing we know for sure they will have to face, the pain of loss. If we don't teach them the right way to say goodbye, well, we haven't really prepared them for the reality of the world. Now, I'm not suggesting we talk to every child the same way. What we share with a 6-year-old is different than a 9-year-old or a 16-year-old. Developmentally and also depending on the very unique circumstances of their lives. And our religious school, and probably the schools your children attend, have resources and books, conversation starters. And our educator and I are happy to meet with you anytime. I must say, the last time I offered a workshop on how to talk about death to parents on a Sunday morning, a lot of grandparents showed up. Parents seem to avoid that workshop like the plague and that side of the building. I know that death is scary, but cemeteries don't have to be. They can be sunny, beautiful, grass-covered, peaceful places with shade and squirrels and benches and breezes. That's up to us. Mourning rituals can bring memories of tears and whispers and closed doors, but they can also be memories of homes filled with sounds of laughter, smells of cooked dishes, brought to offer comfort, candles and visits from friends and hugs. At one funeral I attended here, children placed beautifully colored painted rocks around a grandmother's headstone with words like "I love you" painted in bold and beautiful colors. At another funeral here, grown children painted the casket the day before their mother's funeral. She was a painter, and as it was lowered the next day, we watched as their wonderful illustrations, their words of love, traveled with their mom to that final resting place in the ground. If you have younger children, think about how you will prepare them. A visit to the cemetery on a sunny day, a walk through the woods in autumn and at winter, a special book that you share. If you have older children, 7th, 8th graders, older, depending on their individual experiences and maturity, consider bringing them to Yisker tomorrow night. If your college-age students are home, bring them to Yisker tomorrow night. If they are grown and live in the area and meeting you for breakfast after the conclusion of services, ask them to come earlier and meet you here. If your parents go to another congregation for Yisker and it's in the DFW area and not too late to attend, go drive there and sit with them. Let us make mourning less of a deep, dark secret hidden away. Our faith gives us so many ways to say goodbye. From the Yisker service offered 4 times a year at set times, to the times we are asked to go to the cemetery for visits, to yard sites remembered on the anniversary of a death, to ritual upon morning ritual upon morning ritual. We even conclude Shabbat and Yom Kippur with the ceremony of Havdalah, which at its core is really just about learning the art of saying goodbye. That's what Judaism's trying to teach us, the art of saying goodbye. Bring your older kids with you tomorrow. What will they see? People lighting candles, people crying a bit because they loved and lost, some slower music, maybe a little more organ than usual, but nothing half as intense as this sermon. If we do not teach our children how to remember with us, who will teach them how to remember us? The book of life may be closing for another year, but the book of memory is wide open. Will our loved ones be in it? Who will remember them? And if we do not teach, then who will remember us?
Elohim, may God's Spirit be with you. Ruach Elohim, keep you safe from harm. May the love of God be your shelter from every storm. And keep you, bring you to the light and safe from harm. May the love of friends be your shelter from every storm.
Oh
page 122. We rise for the mourner's Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit gadash shemei rabbah bi'alma tivra v'yamlich malchuteh v'chai echon v'yomei echon v'chai d'chol beit Yisrael v'agalal v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach leolam u'lamei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitale shmei d'kudsha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiram di'amal v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemayim v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Hosei shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace bring peace to all who mourn, all who are in need of comfort. And we say, amen. Please be seated. We turn to the next page, that psalm that has hovered over us now for 2 months. It's almost at its end. Psalm 27. One thing that I ask of God, to dwell in your house all the days of my life. Just a quick reminder that we are here tomorrow, that the schedule is in your service sheets. Please do check that front cover, which includes times for children's services, our opportunity for readings and music, as well as the discussion groups. You can even feel free to just bring a book and spend the day with us and go to one of our many courtyards, although it will be warmer tomorrow than it was today. But come spend the day with us. A word of thanks to our choir and cellist and wonderful accompaniment organ, and Peter, who is making sure the sound systems work, and every one of you make this so beautiful. You will see over the course of Yom Kippur board members who give of their time and sweat and blood, as well as others who give to the synagogue, and we are so grateful. So we thank them for their hours of work, and we reward them by having to sit up here and stay awake all Yom Kippur. So somewhere in there, I don't know, but we appreciate it so much. Of course, there are others you don't see, our custodians, Susie and Jennifer, Scott Sloter and Gary Goldstein, who sit in a closet all day and night so that the many members of our congregation who are ill can watch these services from their homes. To all of them, to all of you for helping make this time together so meaningful, we wish you a safe drive home, and we will see you tomorrow.